Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the VML. We are sponsored by Wizards of the Coast, and we are an 11-week-long MTG League, which showcases the talents of amazing people of marginalized genders within the Magic community. For this, Season 11, we have 128 players total, biggest ever season, filled up very quickly, too, and I want to stress that enough. Thank you so much for your support, everyone. The players have been divided into 16 divisions, and play will be done in a round robin for 7 weeks. Then there will be a wild card week before cutting to a playoff of the top 32. Again, this is week 4. Oh my gosh, where does time go? And if you're interested in joining next season, because there will be more, follow at VMLMTG on Twitter. We also have VML swag that is also available, and we have the 2024 competitive season, which again, there are going to be multiple seasons coming up. So if you want to join us, please do. Once again, you can fight your way to the local regional championships and the Pro Tour through the VML. There'll be 3 seasons of the VML during this competitive year, which all lead into our capstone event, the VML Championships. The top 8 players from each season will qualify for the VML Championships, which will be a 24-player invite-only event. The top 2 players at the VML Championships will receive an invitation to the following Magic the Gathering Pro Tour, which right now I believe there is one going on as we speak. So again, we have the 3 seasons and the VML Championship. You all will not want to miss this. I'm Skybilz, and along with me here, I have my co-commentator, Kuro. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I cannot wait to look at some of these decks. We've had some really good smattering of deck choices going on for us today, and some I'm going to quite greatly enjoy looking at as well. Oh, this will be great.
Yeah, we had a heated conversation here before the precast about aggro versus control versus preferred wipes and the like. So we had a really fun conversation here. It's always fun to have 2 entirely different Magic strategists just kind of sharing that love for all the different strategies here. And we are going to have a lot of different strategies here. Speaking of which, let's take a look at the meta game here. Oh, wait a second. I might be responsible for some of this. Boros Convoke coming in at the 18 mark there for decks. And then we have, of course, Esper, Midrange, and Azorius control. So again, a lot of love here for both sides. What do you think so far just of this? I mean, this, because we have the VML here, this is such a wide array of decks, but yet we have the aggro and we have the control, and then some of the splashing of in between.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the Boros Convoke decks are absolutely interesting. You have a lot. It almost reminds me of Affinity from Mirrodin, where you have a bunch of 1-mana creatures that all go into Knight Errant of Eos as your primary way to gain card advantage. But you have other amazing cards where you can play Epicure or Inspector, get some artifacts, get Gleeful Demolition. You have 4 creatures on turn 2. It's insane. Esper Midrange, Time Honored Tradition, very good, very solid deck, very reliable. And then, of course, my favorite, my baby, Azorius Control, taking 3rd place. I'm so happy. It's great. Azorius Control is good again.
Hey, I'm going to take, again, part of the credit there, because where there's aggro, there is control to follow as well. And there are a ton of wipes in the format. So it doesn't surprise me that these 2 are once again butting heads for just an epic, epic clash of Magic the Gathering colors and decks here. So again, we have a lot of Magic action for y'all coming up. So let us take a look at our first match. And we have Hastur here. And of course, we have Esper midrange. So there you go, Kuro. Again, it's not quite the Azorius control, but it is Esper. And there are some wonderful, noteworthy cards here. Again, in particular, we have Rafine. Who doesn't love Rafine? That Deep Cavern Bat, those dang bats. And then, of course, Tishana's Tidebinder here also. All cards to look for. And of course, across the entire format, these are cards to look at. What sticks out to you about this deck, Kuro?
The Deep Cavern Bat has been proving to be quite a good creature to play. It's great for Rafine triggers. It has really good abilities to stabilize against more aggressive decks, flying and lifelink. And then when you build it with Rafine, combined with the fact that you can basically eat whatever the most important spell in your opponent's hand, it just gets there. And it works really well with everything else that you have. The Tidebender, like you mentioned, is also fantastic because it shuts down planeswalkers. It can counter other annoying activated abilities like channel lands, even if perhaps, or other artifacts, and it just works together. It's really cool deck to be playing.
Yeah, and it's not quite the same, but it's like a pithing needle that can attack almost, right? Like that's what, at least in my mind, what I had seen it used for the most. But yes, I absolutely love this Esper mid-range deck. There's a lot of neat ones coming up. And of course, what are the key cards for you in this matchup here? She says Reanimator is a deck I'll have to beat quickly. So aggressive cards like Rafine or Schooner are great. But I also like to play a lot of spells that can interrupt a reanimation like Bat's Dedic or Lord Skitter. So again, in every Magic match, there's going to be an aggressor and there's going to be one that's more on the back foot here. And it looks like Hastur wants to be the aggressor here. So her opponent now, speaking of which, we have Jenn Crotts here. Again, this is a Division 2 clasher, and this is Dimir Reanimator. Again, just talking about that. And the key cards here, we have Atraxa, Reenact the Crime, a really fun card if y'all haven't seen that out of the new set, and the Cruelty of Gix. Have you seen this deck before, girl?
I actually have, and this deck is wild. It feels like a blue-black control deck or a blue-black dredge deck for a couple turns, and it feels like they're not even doing anything at all. But then you get to turn 3 or turn 4, or when they have the mana to do so, and suddenly they have a huge board that you can deal with. I've even seen a variant of this deck that had green in it that played Emergent Sequence to get the reanimatings a lot earlier. However, blue-black can be just as good. It is extremely reliable. You can loot things, you can counter things, and then when the time is right, you get out the good old Atraxa, and it just works. It just works. Also, it's counterspells. I love counterspells.
I was gonna say, I figured you would love this one. Yes, Atraxa very much a major threat here. And then, of course, Jace, not Fox Jace, that's coming soon, though, to a Magic set near you. And then, of course, the old reliable Shieldred for this format. So let's go right on into the action here. This is the first game of 4 this evening. And let's see what's going on here. All right. And 1 land for Jenn and many lands here for Hastur. Hastur's hand looking pretty solid here to start. Jenn looking like she's going to take a mulligan. But we see a mulligan from Hastur as well. Oh my goodness. What is going on here, Kuro?
We got a good old mana screw, mana flood. But the interesting thing about Jenn's deck is that her deck is not terrible with mana flood. If you get a collector's vault out early, you can just keep drawing and discarding and ramping up to a reanimator spell quite early. Hastur has a bit of a slow hand, but those Virtue of Loyalties I think are going to be very valuable, along with Alquist Proft, a new card that we've seen from the new set, to basically get extra Sphinx's Revelations for freezies. We love Sphinx's Revelation here in the world of blue-white control.
Yes, and Hastur had mentioned earlier that she would like to start out with something a little more aggressive. So yes, keeping the virtue in hand is the good call here. All right, tap land for turn 1, double tap lands here. Of course, we're dealing with the Esper color pie. Of course, there's going to be tap lands here, but here comes that dang bat.
Well, you know something a little worse than having a hand of 5 lands and 1 non-creature spell or non-land spell is 5 lands. Ooh,
Yeah.
that is unfortunate for Jenn.
Right here, another tap land here under City Sewers.
These new Surveil lands have been quite good. I quite welcome them as an addition to the dual lands. They're not only typed so you can fetch them, but they let you Surveil. It's so good for all the decks that want stuff in their graveyard.
All right, and that is a brand new card here. Speaking of MKM, that is Alquist Prof Master Sleuth. Master Sleuth here in the Azorius colors here. How do you feel about this wonderful new Azorius card? Collector's Vault here from Jenn.
I do quite like that it's a Sphinx's Revelation on the stick. And the fact that it has Vigilance means that you can tap it afterwards. It's a good body. It's like Thraven Inspector, but you get twice as much value because it's a better creature. It's even legendary for the legendary decks that you're trying to work with.
Great draw here from Jenn Crotts here. That is a Rona. Rona will also, in addition to the Collector's Vault here, which was also drawn, this is a great, great turn of events and fortune for Jenn here. But will it be enough to get her back into the game, considering there is still a Tidebinder and a Virtue in which the instant will be activated here at the end of the turn? What does this mean here for the board state, and what does it mean ultimately for Jenn at the beginning of this game 1?
Well, Jenn is clearly on the back foot here, and Jenn knows Hastur's deck list since it's open deck list, and knows that 3 mana up, the Tishana's Tidebinder can shut down whatever Jenn wants to try to do. If she tries to activate the vault, there's always a high likelihood that it will get countered and that she will not be able to activate it anymore. So she needs to be very conscious about how much mana Hastur has available. For instance, using it now, may result in a counterspell. However, at the time last turn, she could have avoided that. That being said, it didn't get countered.
No,
Interesting.
it did not get countered here. So that treasure will be made here. And again, as you said earlier, lands aren't necessarily a terrible thing, but that is a second collector's vault. And again, it is important to note that it's not a legendary card. So multiples can be played at the same time here. And it's looking like at this point, Jen's going to be able to cycle through her deck on the pretty regular here. That Tidebinder is suddenly looking really tempting for Hastur. And that is a go for the throat off the top for Hastur.
Yeah, that removal is really rough because even if Jenn gets out in Atraxa, the pressure that Hastur is pushing means that if Jenn draws, say, 5, 6, 7 cards with Atraxa, the Go for the Throat can just simply kill it, and Hastur can still push the advantage because Jenn does not have the board state to defend against this 6-power vanilla creatures.
All right, here's another kind of aggressive card here for Hastur. This is the Schooner. And again, leaving up that Tidebinder mana here. If you're Jenn here, do you have to suspect the Tidebinder by this point, given how essential it is at this point for Jenn?
I certainly would. It's definitely a card that is very scary to be playing against, considering the deck requires so many activated abilities to pop off. The only good thing here is that the Tashana's Tidebinder might not be as much of a problem since Jenn just drew a board wipe, which is quite important for this board state right now. She'll be able to get back her other artifacts, she'll be able to reset the board, and not have to worry so much about other opposing creatures.
Yes, and Jenn can reassemble the board quite handily here. That is a Kaito, a Cruelty of Gix, and a board wipe right now. This is quite the good hand here for Jenn. It just is a matter of when is Jenn going to strike here. And again, do you maybe suspect a way in which Hastur can ward off, pardon the pun, sorry, so to speak, when it comes to this? Let's see what Jenn does. Jenn does go for the board wipe here, wanting to start anew. There goes the board, the Collector's Vault back into Jenn's hand here, and this is looking like an entirely new match here.
Yeah, but this Kaido is going to be countered with the Tidebander here, even if it's a +1 because Rona attacked. The intention is to draw an extra card. Unfortunately, this Schooner is going to be coming in and potentially exploring on the Tidebander, which could be lethal in 2 turns, depending on what Jenn draws.
And that is another Deep Cavern Bat off the top for Hastur here, taking Cruelty of Gix. And here comes the Schooner, as you had predicted. Schooner going in for face. Again, this is going to be very close to lethal here. That is a Denic on the top here. Is there anything that can stop Hastur here?
At this point, I do not believe so. If Jin were to somehow magically draw a Reanimate spell and Atraxa, returning it would be nice and draw a bunch of cards, but Hastur has the Go for the Throat, as previously stated. Hastur also has a creature on top of the library, so a board wipe that is drawn by Jin will also not result in in staving off the assault because the Schooner is going to get in. Kaido Shizuki could minus and make a creature if the Tidebinder were not in play, but because that Tidebinder is shutting down Kaido, that takes away all of its abilities, including the one that causes Kaido to phase out, which is why Kaido did not phase out that turn. Wow, Tidebinder really shining right now.
All right, what is Jenn going to do here with the Triumph? We'll see what the solution here is. Looking at the Tidebinder, as you were saying, and yes, that will be bitter triumph for the Tidebinder to free Kaido. And now Kaido's token can't exactly stop the Deep Cavern Bat. It doesn't have flying here. So is there, I believe we'll have to go into the draw a card. And yeah, that's not going to work because there's no cards left in hand for Jenn. And that is going to be game number 1. Hastur going up 1-0 here. And that was, wow, Hastur had everything going in terms of board state there. And that was with 1 board wipe, Kuro. Can you believe that?
Yeah, absolutely. Like the tenacity of the Schooner really struck there, as well as the bat shutting down whatever Jen was trying to do. It was unfortunate to have a starting hand of 6 lands and a looter, but that's just how it is sometimes in Magic. And if you have a bat, you just get that to work out.
All right, so there's a lot of interesting cards that could be sideboarded here. Anything of interest between these two players that might be the X factor here going into game number 2?
Um, any graveyard hate would be good on
Mm.
Jen Hastur's side. For Jenn, I think in Path of Peril, there's an argument to be made for it. There's a bunch of deep cavern bats that must be dealt with. The Denic must be dealt with by some degree, and if the tokens are being made from Virtue of Loyalty, those also have to be dealt with as well. Those board weights are necessary, but unfortunately, Jenn does not seem to have any way to reliably deal with the Schooner, except for Bitter Triumph. So she's going to have to proactively deal with that with the duress. If that lands, though, she might be dead in the water. We'll have to see.
Yeah, a lot of interesting choices to be made for sure here by both players here. Now we are going into game number 2. Jenn going first, and pretty decent hand. You don't want to see Atrax in the opener, from what I can understand from a Reanimator, but the Cruelty of Gix, can be pour the Atraxa into the yard here. What do you think of both players' hands after the aggressive mulligan that was in game 1, Kuro? What do you think could possibly be going through these players' minds in terms of which hands are kept here going into game 2? And that is going to be Bat for Hastur.
Well, Jenn has a ostensibly great hand. However, losing Bitter Triumph is extremely rough. Hastur has 2 Deep Cavern Bats, so Jenn is going to be suffering a little bit from losing a lot of that steam and having no removal to deal with the bats at all. She's going to be playing from the back foot here. It's actually not bad to have Atraxa in the starter because Jenn had 2 ways to discard it, both the Kaido Shizuki and the Bitter Triumph. Even though the Triumph is gone, Kaido can discard that card, so the Cruelty of Gix could theoretically come down the next turn. Unfortunately, Hastur has another never mind. Never mind. Oh wait, no, the Cruelty is 5 mana, so Hastur can wait a turn before playing the second to get rid of the Cruelty. So it's not actually a problem. Okay, never mind.
Yes, and that is another Atrax off the top, but again, as Curl stated, that is not necessarily a terrible thing here. Again, a lot of ways to draw and then discard Kaido here being the first one, and this is not a terrible hand for Jenn right now. 4th land going down, Runa going down, of course, Hastur knows that Cruelty of Gix is there, but that is a Tidebinder off the top here, so there is now a way for Hastur to manipulate the situation, if you will. That was a very crux draw. What do you think, Kuro?
I think it was an absolutely great draw for Hastur. If there was an advantage meter, it would definitely be in Hastur's direction. This Kaido is getting attacked for sure. It's not dying, though, which is really important. There was an argument last turn that Jenn would not discard Atraxa, so that if Jenn were to magically draw Reenact the Crime on a future turn, she could discard the Atraxa and reanimate it on that exact turn, because Reenact the Crime requires that it happens into the graveyard on that turn. So that could have happened. Unfortunately, that's sort of not the world we're living in right now, especially since the number of reanimating spells that Jenn has right now is quite few. Hastur very clearly has the advantage at the moment, I think.
Yes, and that is a Breach the Multiverse from the top here for Jenn. Unfortunately, just very, very, very expensive. An Otawara, which could be used to bounce the bat during a very critical time here. We'll see if Jenn can use this Otawara to her advantage here to perhaps get the Cruelty of Gix back, which is probably looking like the more lively scenario. However, keep in mind that Tidebinder still lurks in Hastur's hand here.
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, the Tidebinder can be used to counter Otawara, and if you're in a situation where the Kaido's about to die, and you have Rona, which isn't able to discard since she only has 1 card in her hand, this Otawara is not going to do anything, probably, unfortunately.
All right, Hastur here saying, no, Kaido, this is too much of an enabler for Reanimator, and I'm very sure there's not much Jenn can do. Could use the Otawara, but again, isn't going to really do much of anything right now. And that Tidebinder, again, still looming in Hastur's hand. It's the one thing that Jenn doesn't currently know about here, and I think we are about to see the Tidebinder most likely. But going for the Bitter Triumph is interesting here.
Well, it can be cast, and Jenn has the life total to potentially kill the second Deep Cavern Bat, so that she only has to deal with 1. It makes sense to me. I like the choice. Unfortunately, it's not going to happen because Tidebinder is stifle on a creature, which is crazy and insane. It's so good. It's so good.
All right, that is a Virtue of Loyalty off the top here, and if you're Hastur, it may not be the best card, but it certainly is a card that can further the damage at the end of this turn. And again, lots to do here with the lands. What happens with the virtue of loyalty here? And going for the full charged enchantment here. Unfortunately, Jenn will negate that. So that might buy Jenn a little more time here. But what is it going to take for Jenn to come back? Perhaps a board wipe?
Okay, discarding Atraxa, not bad, not bad. Oh, that is.
Yeah.
Well, Hastur is setting up. Jenn doesn't necessarily lose yet because Hastur still has to deal with the 1/3 blocker, but Hastur is also in a position where Aqua's Prompt can just sacrifice the clue and Sphinx's Revelation here. Playing Uganjo as a land will be allow a Sphinx's Rev for 4, which is pretty insane.
Ooh.
Oh, that's so rough. That draw for Jenn would have been so nice like 3 turns ago. Unfortunately, that's not happening.
Down goes Verna here, and we only have a respect the crime left from Jenn. Not much can be done here. Jenn could get a board wipe, but again, trying to think of the best top deck right now, and that is not it. That is going to be a land. The crime is not respected because there was no crime committed during this turn, so to speak, and it looks like Hastur is going to win this game.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. The Reanimator deck is cool. Unfortunately, it wasn't able to get there. Oh well.
Still a wild game there, though. Just well played by both players. And just sometimes, as you were talking about before, Kuro, sometimes the draws just don't go your way. We saw that with the frequent mulligans in game one. I was losing track of the mulligans. That's how many we have. And just sometimes that just shows how volatile of a game Magic the Gathering can be, especially with this now extended standard. We were talking about that before. And that has definitely been a factor here in the VML so far this season. Again, good games to both players here. And let's roll into game number 2. This one is going to be a game. It is most certainly going to be a game. And there's your Azorius control here. Carl, I'm just going to let you take this one away. I know this is your passion.
All right, we got a new counterspell in standard. It's called No Way Out. It's Mana Leak and Dissipate if they had a baby. It's absolutely fantastic counterspell. It counters everything. It slices, it dices, it makes you a smoothie. It causes you to, grow a big long beard if you want it or not. It's great. It's amazing. The interesting choice that I've seen recently, however, is a main deck temporary lockdowns. This seems to be a choice that a lot of control decks have been making recently, and I think it's to deal with the sheer amount of tokens that are currently in standard, particularly the clue tokens that are so problematic. It deals with Wandering Emperor tokens. It deals with the 1-mana dudes that are aggroing you out. It deals with mono red even, which is really important. And it's just an all-around good old-fashioned board wipe. You have classic things like March of Otherworldly Light, Memory Deluge, Wandering Emperor, Sunfall, classic pieces, and you have a sideboard that's equipped for everything. Also, Restless Reef is hilarious and awesome. Or Restless, the blue white one. Sorry, Restless Reef is the blue black one. I've had that on the mind. Anyway, yeah, great cards put in here.
Can I just say, I think we need another wipe in standard.
Surely we need 3 more wipes. Surely we need 17 more board wipes because we don't have enough board wipes. It's not enough to have Farewell, Temporary Lockdown, Sunfall, and all the black ones. No, we need more.
It is a lot. And again, even if someone were to break the temporary lockdown, I mean, the Sunfalls could just play cleanup for it. So it just needs to stall, right? When you're a control deck, you don't necessarily always need to control the field. You just need to control it during the critical times here. And again, a shout out to the new counter spell, No More Lies. This has been seeing a ton of gameplay lately.
Yeah, I said no way. I meant No More Lies. Dang it.
It's okay. This is still going to be a really difficult deck for any deck that uses aggro to beat. I mean, this is just terrifying. Unless you get right out, this is going to be a very difficult deck. And let's see what deck is going to play against it. Also known as Rakdos midrange here, it has hits such as Deep Cavern Patch, Shield Rid, Geological Appraiser. This seems like a pretty decent deck to take on Azorius, if there ever was any. The only thing is Azorius can exile, and we see this with Farewell and Sunfall. Kuro, what do you think this deck is going to need to do to ward off again? Sorry about the pun, I can't help it. It's really funny. Azorius midrange, or sorry, Azorius control, excuse me.
Wow, that is 2 word jokes in one 30-minute period. I don't know if I can handle that. Anyway, getting the Deep Cavern Bats down and knowing what the Azorius deck has in their hand, That is the most crucial thing for playing against control. Control wins if it makes the opponent think that you have the answer for everything. But control cannot have the answer for everything. It is not that versatile of a deck. It must act as if it has the answer for everything, and it makes you believe that they have the answer for everything. Deep Cavern Bat takes the best answer away and makes sure that you know what they're operating with, so you can act as appropriately as possible. With card advantage engines such as Geological Appraiser and Gix, and even Thunderous Cavern Maw, I think it's called, the Cascade Dinosaur. All of those things can work really well together to make a really explosive turn, even if the blue-white control deck has just done a board wipe. It's just a matter of getting those cards out and making it work.
Yeah, the Trepidating Carnosaur is terrifying. You never want to run up against it. All right, here we go. We are heading in. Buckle yourselves in, chat. This is going to be a very, very, very intense game here. I can already tell by the types of decks that we have. All right, looks like the Rakdos deck is going first. That was a lot of lands considering its control, and a lot of lands yet again for AtomicAlchemical here. What is the situation going on here for the Rakdos midrange?
Well, if you're playing mid-range, normally you want to have really good board presence on the early game. Against a control deck, though, it could be important, and it definitely is if you want to get under their skin before they can get a lot of lands out. But you can be confident that the game is going for a very long time as a mid-range deck. So if your hand happens to be Gix in the Cruelty of Gix against a potential mono red deck, that would be a really really terrible hand. Mono red would already be killing you. But against control, they're not landing a threat until like turn 7, so there's no reason to be worried at all. It's about setting up and making things that the control deck has to answer. Don't let them spend mana on draw spells when they could be trying to kill your creatures.
And this is quite the critical land that was drawn there. That is a Cavern of Souls, which understandably was not played given the mana situation right now. And Atomical Chemical animates the Restless Fence here. So it looks like we might get a chance to see likely a get lost here because of that and get land destruction in standard.
Yep.
What?
Well, control is a resource battle. The more lands that I have a internal principle where when you're playing control, the more lands that you can land, the higher your chances of winning. If you can take away your opponent's land even for one turn, that can almost be equivalent to taking an additional turn. AtomicAlchemical has drawn an extra card, but they're now behind on lands, so Keyo can take advantage of that situation and potentially get a board presence with the lands. Keyo is not getting a board presence with creatures. That is not how control is going to win. So they definitely need to get the lands in play so they can cast all of the spells that they need to cast.
Yes, and Keyo here being very, very patient, but here comes the Wandering Emperor, one of the best planeswalkers in Standard, says goodbye to Gix here, and AtomicAlchemical, they are going to be unleashing the Blood Tithe Harvester here, in which that token could be playing a pivotal role here against control to help prevent the land flood that looks like it's going on in AtomicAlchemical's hand right now.
Yeah, if Keyo knew that AtomicAlchemical had 4 lands in hand, Keyo would be cheering from the top of the rooftops. This is the ideal situation for a control deck. Knowing your opponent does not have any resources to actually kill you means that you can sit tight regardless of how many lands you don't draw. Keyo really needs to draw some lands here. And if you're a normal mid-range player, you'd be like, why does Keyo need more lands? Keyo has 5. 5 is sufficient, right? No. Control, you want as many lands as you can possibly get, because you're going to get to a point where you're playing like the Wandering Emperor on the same turn as a counterspell, or you're playing Sunfall and then you want to hold up a Wandering Emperor. You need a whopping 9 lands to make that work.
And that is a Geological Appraiser that we had just saw. And now there goes the token, which in my opinion is a big win for control, right? You use a token to stave off something. You don't exactly have to use a wipe for that here. And again, life is a resource here, and KO is certainly experiencing that. However, I do notice a slight lack of lands here for the control deck.
Yeah, this may be problematic. KO can prepare for something like the Cruelty of Gix. Surely KO knows that AtomicAlchemical has them in their deck, but knowing when they're going to be played is an entirely different question at all.
All right, there goes the blood token here. And against control, we're going to see that most likely be used to cycle out cards. And pretty loaded hand overall for AtomicAlchemical, but also KO pretty good hand as well. The only thing is it doesn't look like there's a multiple options available for KO. So land count here playing a pretty pivotal role here in game number 1 in this intense matchup.
Yeah, the good news is that KO is playing a deck that is really good at operating at the end of AtomicAlchemical's turn, which means that if AtomicAlchemical passes the turn, KO can just go, okay, I'll just do some things and then pass the turn again. AtomicAlchemical, on the other hand, has to do stuff on their turn. They have to really work hard and make sure that they can get a presence down that is threatening. And that's difficult to do when KO is playing a board wipes and a half. That's my new quote. I'm quoting.
Board wipes and a half.
4 wives and a half. That's my new quote. I'm writing it down and copying it.
So here we go. Preacher of the Schism down the middle for 2. Let's see how. Oh, and the Appraiser down the board for 2 as well. This will result in a token being created here, and we're going to see Wandering Emperor.
Yeah, this preacher is not as bad as it looks. As long as AtomicAlchemical has less life than KO, the preacher is only going to make tokens, which KO wants. KO can answer the tokens with Temporary Lockdown or Sunfall or any other board wipe. It's when AtomicAlchemical is drawing extra cards from the preacher that becomes a huge problem. And if that is why that is a big threat. A 3/2 with no abilities is not a threat at the moment. At least it's not a priority.
Also, too, we do see a newer draw spell here. That is Deduce. Fan of that one.
I heard you like Think Twice. Well, we gave you Think Twice in Standard. And it's slightly better because it only costs 2 to flashback. Not bad, actually. I quite like it.
Okay, here looks like we're going to see some more combat down the middle for the token. 3 at the Wandering Emperor here, and we are going to see March of Otherworldly Light, it looks like, for the Geological Appraiser.
Ooh, I like this. It's exactly enough mana that you can hold up No More Lies. Like I was saying earlier, you need the lands. Because KO has 7 lands, KO can kill the 4 mana creature and then hold up No More Lies afterwards, which is so nice. Oh, that's an activated ability, so it doesn't matter.
Yep, that does
Well,
get around counter spells, or at least the traditional sense of counter spells.
we call this a diggity diggity darn moment. That is the new catchphrase that I just came up with just now. Yeah.
I love it.
Thank you.
All right, so we have Appraiser here, and no more lies, says KO. Field of Ruin. Oh, wait. Hang on. Oh, yes, you're going to see this a lot for Cavern of Souls against Control. So that is a Field of Ruin, getting rid of Cavern here. KO's like, no, I don't want to see a large dinosaur that I can't answer, plus whatever else, maybe a Shieldred here. Very, very critical use there of land destruction again. And that is a Deep Cavern Bat off the top for AtomicAlchemical here. Things are starting to get spicy here in game number 1 for Rakdos.
That was wild. Did the Cavern of Souls not name human for Geological Appraiser to push it through? Because I really thought that was going to be uncounterable, but I guess it was.
It named Dinosaur. It named Dinosaur there.
Wow. Planning ahead, I suppose. I would highly suggest when playing against Control and you know they have Field of Ruins, play the Cavern of Souls on the same turn that you're going to play the thing you want to not be countered. That is the best way to do that. Because what you're doing is you're opening yourself up to let it be Field of Ruined. And that is exactly what happened in this game. Interesting. Wow.
So here comes everyone's favorite land bird, especially if you're Control here, creating that map. And now we are also going to see the map being used here for Deluge. Oh my gosh, that's pretty quick for a Control move. Cruelty at Gigs here, reanimating. So again, leaving up that mana. How do you think AtomicAlchemical might play around the No More Lies here, Kuro?
It's difficult. Grabbing a rampage, grabbing the Cascade Dinosaur is not an option because it costs 6 mana, and Atomical does not have a 9th land to pay the 3 that No More Lies requests. Shieldred is a nice pick. However, Chemical does know about the Sunfall, and KO can basically force this to resolve with No More Lies without worrying about a Deep Cavern Bat. This could be a problem for AtomicAlchemical since this Sunfall is probably going to come down.
All right,
It's not interesting.
This is terrifying if you are in the position of the control player here. Shieldred is just, oof, oof, just really, really scary. And speaking of things that are scary, that is a big, terrifying dinosaur. And let's see what is going to be discovered. A bat. The bat likely taking Sunfall, if I were to guess.
It would definitely take Sunfall. However, the bat doesn't actually matter that much because the temporary lockdown can kill the bat, which causes the Sunfall to be a viable thing to get back. So as long as Keyo's memory deluge is not taken, AtomicAlchemical is definitely in a position of all time. Um, I'm really debating. I really want to see what this memory deluge is going to get. And AtomicAlchemical is probably thinking pretty hard about, do I commit more creatures to the board? Every creature that Chemical plays is a free creature that KO gets to kill, which is really, really good for control. The more creatures you can kill with one board wipe, the more card advantage that is, which is what makes that so threatening. And AtomicAlchemical has to prepare for that eventuality. Do you play Geological Appraiser to draw a card? Maybe. Do you play Cruelty of Gix? Maybe.
Hmm.
They already know the hand, so searching for a card and losing 3 life is probably the better option. Yeah.
Certainly.
You can fetch another Cruelty of Gix, probably. Or another Shieldred. That is also a perfectly fine and valid choice.
All right, memory deluge here from KO. Let's see what is found. Another Sunfall, another memory deluge. These are looking like some great options here for KO. And exactly as I thought, that is a Sunfall and the deluge off the top here. Seems like both of those are Control's best friend.
Yeah, this is really, really nice for KO. The KO does not have to use a temporary lockdown on the bat, which means that KO can keep up mana for the second memory deluge that they now have. This also results in them receiving the Sunfall back and makes the token a 5/5. This seems pretty trivial, but this concert this Phyrexian Incubator being a 5/5 instead of a 4/4 because of that Murex token allows it to effectively block Shieldred, where if it was a 4/4 it would die, but if it's a 5/5 it trades, which means that AtomicAlchemical is going to have a much harder time attacking into KO. And little things like that are little things that you can use to eke out playing against a control deck that can result in a win or a loss because that's one less
Yes.
resource you have to use. Sorry. Yes.
So there are a lot of options right now for AtomicAlchemical in the tank. And again, understandably so. While the board state doesn't look complex, the just state of the game in general is very complex. KO does have that token now to attack with here, but what kind of angle is AtomicAlchemical going to take here? It's again going down to value here. So here comes the appraiser. And it pulls Go for the Throat here. Doesn't exactly do much here when the vast majority of what your opponent plays are artifact tokens from the Sunfall.
It's not bad because it kills a restless anchorage, and that is actually quite crucial. But the thing is that if KO is attacking with restless anchorage, AtomicAlchemical is most likely losing the game because that when you're attacking with the manlands, that is when you're confident that your opponent cannot play anything else.
All right.
Another creature gets. Oh my god.
Another cruelty off the top for AtomicAlchemical. And again, there's a reason why we're seeing a lot of that. Sagas are powerful, and cruelty just does so much. Here comes the incubator, though, looking like to defend. And again, Go for the Throat cannot hit the incubator.
KO is most likely. Ooh. Oh no, no, Atomic.
Uh oh. Okay. Okay. I was like, whew.
Wow, the Carnosaur is being used to kill the token. That
Okay, so
is interesting.
but will the Algonjo play a factor here? We'll see. Yes, that is Algonjo to protect the token in response.
If you ever want to deal with that sort of thing without running into Iganjo, a good choice you can do in the future for anybody who's interested, you can stop combat at the end of combat. The creature is still attacking or blocking after the damage is dealt. So if you're in a control position and you want to kill something, but your incubator is only like a 3/3, if you don't want your opponent to destroy it before the Iganjo resolves, you let the token deal damage, and then at the end of combat, you Iganjo their creature. And that is a really good way to sort of eke that out. And people never see that coming, so they don't really think about it. In this position, it doesn't matter quite much you can put the damage on after the creature is done with combat, so you don't have to worry about Iganjo messing you up.
The only thing I regret not being able to see right now is how many cards are left in both players' decks. This is definitely a control struggle if I've ever seen one. March of Otherworldly Light here on Cruelty. Keyo's like, no, that's enough of this nonsense here. And that is a good one to get rid of considering how much value that card produces, right? Keyo passes turn, back to AtomicAlchemical. And again, everything that you see with the red eye, for folks who may not know, those are cards that are revealed to AtomicAlchemical here. So again, those cards can be in so many ways played around here. Now, where would you assign the advantage bar right now, Kuro, if you were to assign one?
In KO's position, the longer the game goes, the more likely that KO is going to win. Very simple.
All right, so we're going to see what AtomicAlchemical's next move is here. There's quite the variety, but again, AtomicAlchemical knows that the Sunfall is there. Again, because of how powerful Sunfall is, AtomicAlchemical has to respond first. Death Touch Creature might be a great way to do that here as the Preacher is played.
This is an interesting position. KO exiled a white card earlier, not because of any particular card in the hand, but rather so that KO has exactly 7 mana to flashback Memory Deluge at the end of AtomicAlchemical's turn. KO is very confident that they are not losing the game this turn. This Memory Deluge is coming in, and KO had exactly the right number of lands to be able to do that. Hey, look, another Sunfall. I heard you like board wipes. Do you want another one?
Do you want
Here
another
you
one?
go,
Oh
for
my
free.
gosh. Oh, decides against the not the Eternal Wanderer, the Wandering Emperor. We were talking about Eternal Wanderer before. Token coming down for 5. Let's see if there's any blocks here. AtomicAlchemical using the Harvester as a block. So again, no damage being dealt here. And now let's see what KO does before the end of the turn. Uses Sunfall. Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, if AtomicAlchemical had traded the vampire with the token and killed it, KO might not have cast the board wipe there because that's a perfectly fine trade to make. But because the 3/2 had just jump blocked it, then that's fine. There's an argument again, like earlier, that making a 5/5 is better than a 4/4 because this Shieldred is now cannot be blocked effectively by a 4/4 token. However, you know what does kill Shieldred? March of Otherworldly Light for 5 mana. It's just, yeah, it just shworks.
That it does. And again, KO has AtomicAlchemical in quite the conundrum right now, quite the pickle, running out of gas, if anything, right now. And the only way AtomicAlchemical has the way to cycle cards now is the Restless Vents that was just played here. So again, we're kind of seeing the end of steam here for Rakdos mid here in game number 1. Meanwhile, KO just has no shortage. And speaking of the land, that is Field of Ruin to destroy the land here. Again, just further reducing what AtomicAlchemical can do here. Is there any way AtomicAlchemical can come back into this game right now, Kuro?
They'd have to draw Rampaging Carnosaur like twice
Hmm.
to cascade to something else and to be able to combat this. The problem is KO has many different things, many different machinations that will allow KO to win. There's 3 board wipes, there's 3 pieces of removal in KO's hand, and another Field of Ruin. So the only thing that's keeping AtomicAlchemical alive is the cut down, the go for the throats on the manlands, which again, if you're attacking with the manlands, you're probably losing. So yeah, this works.
And that is game number 1 for KO's Azorius control deck. They go up by 1 game here. So again, we're talking about the Rakdos control, Rakdos midrange, plan here. Thinking about this, you have to get rid of that removal, right? You have to pitch that to the sideboard because anything like that is just a dead draw at that point.
Yeah, that's exactly why KO is siding in the Tidebinder, the Chromho Sea Shark, all of those creatures that can really take advantage of the fact that Alchemist is most likely going to side out their go for the throats, because ostensibly you don't need them, but you really do because those tokens are going to sometimes get those Wandering Emperor tokens will really get you, and the Chromho Sea Shark will also get you. You get free creatures, which is awesome. We love free things here, but it's just a problem.
Also, temporary lockdown coming out of the out of the deck game one. This is actually pretty common. So I always describe this as getting VML'd. When you see main boarded Brotherhood End, temporary lockdowns, things of that nature, you know that that is being played around the meta right now, which with Boros Convoke having 18 decks again, that is no surprise that we are seeing these things being main boarded here. What is your advice for someone trying to pick a deck going into next week, knowing that things like Convoke and things like Azorius control exist, Kuro?
You have to be really conscious about what your opponents are playing and how their decks win. If you know
Mm.
that your opponent is winning by playing a ton of creatures, playing even like as simple as a card that is a mass 1 damage or a mass 2 damage thing can be just good enough to be able to get rid of your opponent's game advantage, board advantage. And
Mhm.
if you can play temporary lockdown as a control deck, that works. If you're playing this deck, you can deep cavern bat and take away their most important card. That works. If you're playing red and they're playing things like lethal demolition, even maybe like a fringe artifact destructor such as a braid can work because they're trying to play an artifact and then destroy it, right? But if you braid it, they've lost their artifact and also their lethal demolition. So you have a lot of different options, but it all boils down to being conscious about what the first 4 to 5 turns look like for each deck. Think about what their most common, like what is their best case first 4 to 5 turns, and can you combat that? Can you combat that if you're on the draw? Can you combat that if you're on the play? If the answer is no, then is the number of games that you're going to lose an acceptable loss in terms of the larger scope of things, right?
Hmm.
If you're going to lose the 30% of games where they get the god draw, but you can win the other 70% of games, that is a win rate that is perfectly acceptable. But if you have a really hard time with that deck and you end up losing like 60% of the time, it might be good to go back to the drawing board.
That is awesome analysis here. As we go into game number two here, that's a lot of lands for someone who needs to kind of stave off control here. What do you do here if you're in KO's situation? KO keeps.
I would keep that hand. It's disdainful stroke, and it's pretty likely that AtomicAlchemical isn't going to play very much going forward. KO has 5 lands, so KO does not have to draw any extra cards to get any lands. And oh, do we know what the Cavern of Souls is naming? What did it say?
It named vampires.
This Aklataz is definitely going to matter quite a bit. Um, this game too might end up being kind of short depending on what the players do here. The Preacher's uncounterable, Aklataz is uncounterable. Geological Praiser, though, could be coming down. So if KO plays the Chromho Seed Shark, this could be a problem.
Yes, this also might be a race of counter spells, right? Like counter spells and wipe spells. So again, we do see the memory deluge, which can create. Oh, there you go, Iganjo. You were talking about Iganjo earlier. Preacher's still doing its thing here, but yes, those wipes, the wipes that there are just so many wipes in standard right now. That might be the X factor here in game number two. But how do you deal with that Alkalosh short of Sunfall? That seems like that's going to be pretty difficult.
Yeah, the Aklataz is pretty resilient. Coming back as a land is always really nice, and being able to take advantage of what it does is just really cool. Um, However, it only does stuff when it attacks and when you discard a land. If it's just a creature, the very first turn it comes down, it doesn't actually do that much. So KO might be taking advantage of that fact. If I were in KO's position, I'm thinking Memory Deluge and hopefully get Sunfall, and then Sunfall next turn, regardless of what's out. AtomicAlchemical is not playing haste creatures, so there's no worry that AtomicAlchemical is going to be able to get anything that is going to kill KO in right away. However, the Rampaging Carnosaurs are lightning strikes on a stick, so maybe those will be problematic. I would be conscious about all of that.
Yes, certainly the memory deluges here are going to be telegraphed, right? Like, why else would you leave the field open here? And there it is, everyone's favorite bat god.
Yeah, this could be really bad. Ooh, there's no Sunfall.
Oh,
This could be a loss. If there's no Sunfall here, yep. Okay, that's it. Control is not going to win because the Wandering Emperor could come down and deal with Aklataz, which takes you to 7. But then there's 9 damage on the board, and the March cannot kill anything because there's no white cards in KO's hand.
mm,
If Steam Shark is played, there aren't enough ways to make enough mana to make tokens to potentially block. And worst comes to worst, Bullet Tide Harvester can kill a blocker as well. So I don't think KO is winning this game, and I think it's going to go to a game 3. Oh, Manland. Yeah, that works. You can march the Manland for 0 and Wandering Emperor Aklataz, and it just still is not going to work, unfortunately. But you can still play it out. I mean, just to see.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that is the Wandering Emperor, which would -2 the Aklataz.
Yep. Gains 2 life, which is fine, but AtomicAlchemical will decide to cut down their own creature just to make the game last an extra turn. Surely
No,
that's a good idea. Surely
not
amazing.
again. No, not against control. You don't do that. Game number 3 here. And that was very quick. So you were talking about this before, Kuro. The longer the game goes, the more it benefits control. And we just saw what happens when control doesn't have all those tools available right away. So it seems like in this state, Atomic Alchemist also needs to think more like an aggro player than a mid-range player right now, which the joy of mid-range is you do get to do both. However, there is that kind of drawback now. You're going second. That might not be an option, especially if a Sunfall is found relatively early.
Absolutely. Annoying with Affliction, I wouldn't even be upset taking out here. Brotherhood's End is coming in, which is a choice. I'm trying to think why. Probably the choke.
Artifacts.
Yeah, all the artifacts that are coming down, the tokens that are coming down are really
Yeah.
important to get rid of, especially like a 5/5. And when you kill the artifacts, it's one-sided board wipe. Oh boy. KO's hand.
Oh, yeah. You ever just 6 lands in a Shieldred? I have. I've seen that before.
Oh, this deep cavern. This hand is equally sad. Unfortunately, AtomicAlchemical has the lands and has Cavern of Souls, but is not going to be able to do anything other than this deep cavern bat. Oh, and that Carnosaur is not going to come down until turn 6. Yikers.
Oh, that is 2 Wandering Emperors. However, this is kind of scary for Keyo as well, right? That's only 3 lands right now, and control, as we've discussed before, needs many lands to function.
Hey, look, another land.
All right, let's see what's going to happen here. I'm thinking the bat. Yep.
Wow, look, another land. The bat's probably taking temporary lockdown here so that KO cannot just simply kill the bat. Oh no, they take the draw.
No, that is a
Really?
respectable move there because again, you're using the lockdown then to get rid of that. It makes sense there. I could see that.
I think that's fine. However, the Field of Ruin is going to be able to get a white mana as the poor man's Evolving Wilds.
Oh
Um,
my goodness.
this Wandering Emperor is surely coming down next. Ooh, another Field of Ruin. That is very nice. That is very, very nice, if I do say so myself. In fact, I invented Field of Ruin. I don't know if I told. No, no, that's not true.
Speaking of
Sorry.
being short on lands here, oddly enough, as this is to mention, AtomicAlchemical is short a couple lands right now.
A little bit, but the difference is that Chemical actually doesn't want to draw lands as much as KO does. KO
Yeah.
wants the lands for sure.
Oh, that's an important draw off the top. That is no more lies off the top, which again, there's a lot of things that you want to counter early game, and with little lands being available, not a terrible draw.
And I assume the Cavern of Souls went Praetor, unless it went Vampire or even Dinosaur. Did you see what it said?
I did not this time. I'm going to guess that it is Dinosaur, just considering looking at AtomicAlchemical's hand. It's either Praetor or Dinosaur. We'll see in a few what it actually is, because that'll be based on what AtomicAlchemical likely does.
This is interesting. The Wandering Emperor is potentially coming down this turn. AtomicAlchemical knows this, but still use their creature to attack the other one. Oh, nope. Just kidding. It's not happening. All right, well, I lied for content. Sorry about that.
But it says no more lies. The card says no more lies.
I really should be taking the advice of the magic card right in front of me. I didn't think about it. You're absolutely correct. Oh.
Oh, that is a farewell off the top, which again, when you're playing against a deck, this isn't exactly Reanimator, it's mid-range, but Rakdos midrange has potential to turn into a Reanimator deck via Cruelty of Gix here. So that farewell is just devastating. It is the devastating board wipe here if you're in the position of AtomicAlchemical. However, AtomicAlchemical does have a ton of possibilities here still. So it is far from being over. This is just turning into a very sticky situation.
Yeah, this Shieldred needs to be answered. If KO just sits here and does nothing for a while, unfortunately, the Shieldred's going to pop off and just kill KO in like 6 turns or so. Because that Carnosaur could just deal 3 damage. Oh, just kidding. It's not. It's dealing with the creature?
Well, it makes sense too, right? Because Cavern of Souls is no longer there. So perhaps AtomicAlchemical is thinking, okay, this is the most likely scenario in which this benefits me right now. Now, that is Anoint with Affliction there for the token. And again, suddenly, this is looking like a really interesting board state. However, say farewell to that board state.
Goodbye. That makes sense though. AtomicAlchemical is not it learned from last game not to block the tokens
Yes.
because that Ganja was absolutely going to be killing the Shieldred for freezies without worrying about a board wipe. So Chemical's like, I am not going to worry about this. Unfortunately, that did mean removing 2 cards from their hand to kill 2 tokens from a Wandering Emperor. So that's still a 2-for-1, even though it wasn't, even though the Shieldred did not die to the creatures, which Control still wants.
All right, here comes the preacher. There's one answer here. Who else but Wandering Emperor, which is likely to enter the field here? And again, this was a known. This was a known, but it still doesn't stop from how difficult that can be. Oh,
Oh,
but that is a Carnosaur off the top. However, no more lies is a thing. And the Carnosaur is used for the ability instead, just because, again, you see 2 mana up with a control deck. What do you think is going to happen? No more lies, you know?
that's so rough, actually. So, if you're playing against a deck that plays No More Lies, it is generally better to play your spell and leave up 3 mana first. The Carnosaur cannot be countered by No More Lies, but the Vampire can. And if you're overzealous and you try to kill the Emperor there with the 3 mana, then the next spell you cast will get countered by No More Lies, which
Hmm.
KO took advantage of. Control is all about taking advantage of your opponent's tempo. And if your opponent is playing a little recklessly, you can take advantage of that very easily.
All right, that is a Brother's Hood end off the top. That could be relevant later on for the Sunfall token, not so much useful right now. We are just going to see oh my goodness, we are at board wipes or us here. They are amassing right now, and that's going to be Blood Tithe Harvester. And again, those are not known board wipes right now. The Lockdown's known, but the Sunfall and the Farewell, that just might be too much for AtomicAlchemical to come back from.
And this union of the third path is also really nice because KO can go back to a comfortable 12 life. We know
Mhm.
that 2 Carnosaurs have been used. I think 2. Um, yeah, 2 Carnosaurs have been used, which means that there's only 2 more left in the deck. So KO is only at risk of dying if they're at 6 or less life. Uh, yeah. Right now, this is definitely a good position for KO. I would be
Yes,
very.
and in addition to the farewell can get rid of the graveyard as well, so cruelty isn't as much of a factor here either. March of Otherworldly Light, though, being used here on the Blood Tithe Harvester. What do you think of this?
I absolutely love that because the 3/2 is actually not killing KO. And KO is in a position where they might be able to kill Chemical with the tokens, with poison counters. And suddenly Chemical has to think about that. There's nothing in the graveyard. Well, there's some stuff in the graveyard, but the Carnosaur is there. But KO has no more lives, so it's not even a problem. This is
Oh,
yeah, this board wipe is being used on essentially 0 of KO's cards. So we call this a 1 for 0 in the business. In the business.
well, at least
In
you're
the
not trying to divide, 1 by 0. That's at least not happening here. But now we're looking at this Takanuma here for AtomicAlchemical. And yeah, the land's going to come down. Why not? That's a resource. And I think that you're onto something here, Kuro. This poison damage. That is a very realistic possibility here, especially for control. What a card Mirix is. It may make people want to rethink using and even siding in Field of Ruin here. That is such a force right now in game number 3.
Absolutely. And ooh, was that milled 3 cards? 3 lands? Was that
Yeah.
3 lands that were just milled? Oh my god. That is unfortunate. The thing is, these tokens aren't really hard to block. AtomicAlchemical, though, is making the choice to push through with the 3/2. However, unfortunately, if Chemical continues doing that, they're losing that race. Those poison counters are going to kill Chemical faster than the 3/2 will kill KO, which is crazy to think about, but it's
Mhm.
true. Chemical could push in still with the appraiser, but there's even a restless anchorage that can block the appraiser, and the possibility of a wandering emperor. You have to be really careful at this point. There's so many things that must be. Oh well,
You were saying?
I just look. I'm like a genie. I will things into existence when I say the words. All right, I just have a skill. It just works.
All right, Sunfall here, and that's a pretty meaty token. Again, though, I think poison damage really is the factor here. So again, that is a Wandering Ever off the top. Here comes the Carnosaur.
This is played in a very strategic time, and I actually really, really like this. There's 3 mana exactly that AtomicAlchemical has. Now, they have no idea that Keyo has a no more lives, but since they're playing around it, they're actually getting rewarded for it quite earnestly, which I really, really liked as a choice. Unfortunately, this cut down, not very
Oh my
useful.
gosh, is that what a Memory Deluge looks like in Game 3? I don't know if we've seen one quite yet.
I mean, who needs them when you have 17 million board wipes?
You're not wrong.
Yeah. I took math class the other day, and I learned that 4 is the same as 17 million. So, yeah.
Shieldred off the top and onto the field for AtomicAlchemical. But again, that farewell is still in hand. Now we have Memory Deluge here as well. And that is another Sunfall, another Deluge. It never ends, Kuro. It just never ends.
I mean, the great thing about Memory Deluge is that it's not card draw, so Shieldred will never, Shieldred will never hit you when you
Mhm.
cast Memory Deluge. I think KO is winning this match. I can't see a world where AtomicAlchemical wins here. There's too many Carnosaurs that are gone, and the damage that they would deal is not enough. Um, yeah, this is also, can I give a really quick shout out to Sunken Citadel? Really
Mm.
interesting card. It taps for 2 mana, but only for land abilities. Well, Mirix is a land ability. Iganjo is a land ability. Restless Anchorage is a land ability, and Field of Ruin is a land ability. So you can just tap the Sunken Citadel for all of those sorts of things, and it's really nice because when you need that extra mana for a really important ability, you can just pop it up. Look at my hand.
I was gonna say, what is AtomicAlchemical gonna think about this hand? My goodness, this is such
Um,
a hard position to be in. But you have to admit, AtomicAlchemical put a heck of a fight up. Oh my
yeah,
goodness, yeah. Someone
that's
in chat was saying like, "I am sorry for the snooze fest." One of the players did. No, that was not a snooze fest. That was absolutely fascinating. And there's a lot to be learned about Magic as a whole here. So again, I want to thank both players for that. That was incredible. And again, Azorius is really scary, but we saw the Rakdos deck put up a fight. So again, it just goes to show you, you never give up, even when the matchup looks unfavorable.
yeah, the deck that was a really good instructional match on how to play control well and also how to beat control. The Rakdos deck wins on game 2 because it plays an aggressive strategy that gets under the control deck before they can amass their resources. That is how you win against control. The longer the game goes, the less chance you have of winning because control is going to get their card draw and they're going to get their strategies online. They're going to get their answers. They're going to get everything they need. And that is, yeah. So if you want to know like how to be patient, how to manage your mana well, like there was that turn, right, where the vampire was cast and was countered by No More Lies because they didn't have 3 mana up because they used that for the activated ability that was not going to get countered by No More Lies. Little things like that when you're playing against control can matter quite a bit, and if you keep track of those little things, you'll be able to play against control better. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and it doesn't surprise me that Boros Convoke is kind of like one of those decks that butts heads with it, right? Because it feels like if you don't see lockdown right away, the Boros Convoke just runs away with it because you can get
Yeah.
under. So again, we are learning these things, and that's one of the things I love about VML. You're always going to learn something new about Magic, especially as these formats are morphing rather quickly. Again, Outlaws at Thunder Junction, it's going to be here before you know it. I'm just saying. I know we just had a set. Outlaws will be here before we know it. Anyways, heading into our next match here, let's see what we got. All right, we have Jason, and they are playing 5-color Slogurk. Am I reading that right? But
The ogre slime. What the heck is this? I love this.
I
This is
love this. I love what they have connived. Again, there's another nice magic pun for you there. So yes, I love what they have connived here, but my goodness, I'm reading this deck, and the more cards I see from this deck, I'm just fascinated by it. Is this a new combo-y deck in the making?
all right. Okay, I have a hard time describing this without laughing because it's just so interesting how this works. Um, this is a Legends deck that uses Slogurk as the primary engine. Because the legendary creatures exist, it makes the channel lands cost less mana to activate. But when the channel lands cost 1 mana to activate, you can simply use the legendary creatures to tap for mana to get the lands in your graveyard with Relic of Legends. But when a land goes into your graveyard, Slogurk the Overslime gets +1/+1 counters. So if you're able to amass tons of card advantage and maybe like bounce things and bounce with Slogurk, um, and get those lands back, and you can continue to do wacky shenanigans. You can mess with the board state by using Sokenzan Otawara. You can get card advantage with Takenuma, Boseiju, and you just get it all going. It's hard to describe, but it just kind of works. And yeah, you want to get those lands in your graveyard. You want to gain that life of Titania. Just do all sorts of stuff. It's just wacky.
I love the concept behind this deck, and I cannot wait to see it. So, their opponent
So fun. I love it.
is Abby Rose. We are again here in Division 1, and we are seeing the wonderful, the spicy Boros Convoke. Is this Pioneer? This is Standard. This is something that this deck has always made me question, and there are just so many great cards from the new set here. The Word Leader Anthem is one of my favorite in particular. Case of the Gateway Express being another one. And now we're seeing Emodade's Recruiter, a card that I don't feel like we've seen much of prior to this. My goodness, what do you think of this deck overall, Kuro?
The key to this deck is efficiency.
Hmm? Yeah,
That's the because
I'd
the
agree.
description is very efficient. You have tons of 1 and 2 mana creatures, which is exactly why you see so much temporary lockdown. Imodane's Recruiter is basically fervor. If you've ever played in Urza's Legacy, Urza's Saga, you give everything haste, make everything get +1/+0. Very, very nice card to get. It's just anything that you can use to make all of your tokens get extra power, so you can push through regardless of what blockers your opponent has. That way, you can just kill their face until they die. That's it.
Yes, and this one tends to prioritize creatures over enchantments here. So again, we're seeing the World Leader's Call is in the sideboard. I've seen main board, I've seen in the sideboard. The case being used more as the board anthem here in the main. And of course, we have one of my favorites, Sanguine Evangelist. This wonderful card, not quite from the new set, but still fairly new to the game. We'll see what X factors we have here from both decks heading into our third game this evening here at the VML.
Here we go. Oh, right. Rona untaps when you play a legendary spell, so you just get value from that as well.
Just
That
wow,
rhymes.
I'm looking at this hand and it is so cool. It is breaking my mind that we have from Jason's side here. So again, they are running a wild deck here. There's so many possibilities here for them early on. So going to go for the trial land here early. Abby's turn. Let's see what she plays.
The only thing I'm concerned with is that I don't know if Jason can amass the board state and amass the combo early enough to fight against Abby Rose's deck. We'll have to see how this goes.
All right, Rona hitting the field here for Jason. They did not draw any more lands though, and that is a little concerning because again, you need to be able to keep up with this Convoke deck here. Let's see if Rona draws a solution. Nothing yet, quite yet here from Rona. How does Jason keep up in this scenario? We do have one other card that can be played right now, two other cards rather. And again, this is a favorite. We saw this one being played a lot, especially in limited. A lot of people wanted to see it in limited. What do you think of Inti, Sunshal of the Sun?
I think it works with really good synergy with all of the lands. Oh, I now understand a little bit better. Oh man, everything's just synergy. When you discard a channel land, you get to exile the top card and play it. Now it's not for free, but you do get to play it. Oops, it's dead. Well, that sucks. Anyway, um, well, surely it's fine. Surely it's fine. Surely it's fine. Um, the thing is with all of the Relic of Legends shenanigans going on, and you can just basically discard land cards, get value that way, untap Rona a bunch, get to exile cards. You're basically casting tons of spells.
Mm-hmm.
Just really, really cool. Like, look, you cast a legendary spell, but it untaps Rona. So Rona is basically a Birds of Paradise.
Yeah.
Um, that can untap. And also, Relic of Legends works even if you just played the creature, which means you can immediately tap it when it lands. Well, if you play a legendary creature and then you tap it for mana and you discard a land, and you get to exile top card with Inti. Like it just all works together in just really cool mishmash of like effects, which I absolutely adore.
Well, there's a card that makes you play Rainbow. That's Plaza Heroes in Jason's hand. However, that is Knight Errant of Eos. Again, are we playing Pioneer? Are we playing Standard? Again, Convoke just showing how just tough it can be, especially in the first 5 turns where it really shines here. So again, we're looking at these legendaries here. What cards might be able to help Jason come back into this game from this board state?
Get lost.
Okay. Yep, that's
Well,
one.
what I mean is the card get lost, not you get lost. Um, killing
I
the four
appreciate it.
killing the 4/4 is necessary because it's a thing that. Oh wow, drawing Slogurk. That's awesome. Wow, that's funny. I love that. Killing the 4/4 is necessary. It's just gonna give Abby a lot of tempo, and it's just a big creature that Jason has to deal with. But now Slogurk is out, so the Wombo combo is gonna be starting hopefully soon.
Oh, and that's Titanium coming onto the field here. And again, just using Rona as a Birth of Paradise is brilliant. I love this combo so much. Now, Slogurk is about to start doing some Slogurk things here. And that is Otawara. Again, another very flexible land, channel land. And now it seems like the aggro deck is starting to lose some steam here. There are some pretty big butts in terms of creatures, and you don't get to see that often against Boros Convoke on Jason's side. That is an Epicure that's hitting the field. That is 3 artifacts. It's going to be worth noting for the Warden here, because again, you can tap down artifacts for the Warden's ability here. How does Abby win this game suddenly? Because this board has become very interesting for Jason.
Yeah, this Otawara is going to allow Jason to bounce the Warden if it's ever a problem. Abby has not been attacking with creatures as much, so the case is not triggering until the end of this turn, which means that the creatures will not be buffed until the end of the next turn. Jason gains 2 life for every land that they discard, which is really, really nice. The Titania is going to be helping them quite a bit. I'm not quite sure how Abby's going to deal with this advantage. The instance that Abby is playing probably Ganja. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Which is fine, but then it just bounces. And so that's 2, gets a counter on Slogurk, gets a 2 life. Sheer value. We love value. Value Town, USA. That's
That
us.
Slogurk is going to get huge, isn't it?
I think that's the intention, yes. And it has trample too. So, oh, Inti just landed too. Oh, what is this? The
This
Kenris
is,
funeral.
yes, the funeral.
What the heck is this? All right, all
So
right.
this is a one of, and yeah, it's a legendary enchantment, which makes sense it being the one of. And
Is
it
this
says exile up to 2 target legendary creatures from your graveyard. You draw X cards and you lose X life, where X is the greatest mana value among cards exiled this way. And legendary spells cost 1 less to cast for each card exiled with the funeral. So it looks like some kind of mana efficiency.
Let's see. Legendary spells cost 1 less. Oh, that's fun. So legendary spells now cost much less, so they cost 1 mana to cast. But every time you cast a legendary spell, Rona untaps. So Inti gets cast, which untaps Rona, which then you can then use to discard a card, which
Oh.
then exile the top card, which will allow you to do even more shenanigans. And Slogurk goes back to the hand, so you get 3 lands back. And since you get 3 lands back, you get to do even more shenanigans because you're casting a legendary spell. This is awesome. Is this infinite? Oh my god, is this infinite? That's awesome. This is
Wow.
great.
This is unbelievable.
Oh, and then Rona casts Rona.
Rona casts Rona?
Yeah,
Wow.
which is a legendary spell, so which untaps Rona, so you get mana. Then Rona enters the battlefield again, and then you get to Takenuma again because Slogurk. So you go through your deck. The only thing I'm at a loss for is how this deck wins. But you know what? I'm enjoying this. This is great. Jason is just playing the game by themselves right now. This is awesome.
This
I
is
love
quite the combo deck. All right, so
Yeah, it is.
Titania happens again.
It's infinite life. Hold on, I need to do the math here. So, okay, Slugger is 2 mana, and Rona is mana. Old Rutstein is interesting. Rona costs 1.
This is so interesting.
Is this infinite life?
If it is infinite life, how does Jason prevent from self-mill?
I don't think they do, but how do they win?
Yeah.
Uh, oh, Sokenzan. Infinite Sokenzan discards.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yes.
So you make a token, you make 2 tokens. They're not legendary, but it doesn't matter because you keep getting them back forever. And since you're making those Sokenzan tokens, you just have a bajillion one. Oh, and Sokenzan gives all your creatures haste, right? Or those tokens haste. I'll give those tokens.
The tokens have haste
Yeah,
themselves.
yeah,
Yes.
this is awesome. I love this. This is amazing. Oh, and the Otawara returns the Slogurk, which is what
Oh
Jason's
my
looking
goodness.
for. And since the Slogurk is returned for 1 mana, which returns 3 lands to the hand.
I cannot wrap my. I'm gonna be honest. This is some next level stuff here.
Welcome to Standard, everybody. This is your
Oh my.
hazing ritual. You
Oh
got. You
my
want to see if you can do it?
gosh.
This is it. Jason's gaining infinite life, getting infinite tokens of Sokenzan, can bounce creatures infinite times with Slogurk combo. Rona allows them to untap forever, which allows infinite. Well, I don't think it's infinite mana. Actually, is this? Yeah, I can't tell. This doesn't feel like infinite mana though. It just.
I. I'm trying to think what deck this reminds me of. There was a deck that involved an artifact that used a lot of different mana, and it was kind of recently too. But it reminded me of this.
Huh. This is so interesting. I love this.
But it was another combo deck that reminds me of this
Oh,
one.
Sir Ginger has been returned. Okay, Sir Ginger, Sir Ginger, Sir Ginger, Sir Ginger. That's interesting.
Okay, so Jason, they were just looking for the Sokenzan. That's what it was. Okay.
Are they
That's
doing it now?
the
They're making
Yeah, I
infinite.
saw a good game, like an earnest good game from Jason here. So I assume they were like, okay, this is the combo now. Like that's what they were saying.
That makes sense. You can okay, Sir Ginger's.
Okay. Is Sir Ginger free? Is that what's going on?
Oh, it is because it's a colorless legendary creature. So you play Sir Ginger for free, which untaps Rona, which lets you get Slogurk down. And since Slogurk enters, and you can Otawara the Sir Ginger, and that gets it back. Sir Ginger's a legendary, so it's free mana. Oh, that's awesome! This is
So
great.
Sir Ginger's
Hi, Phoebe. Okay.
Mhm. Whew. I that kind of strategy had never occurred to me. I'm gonna be honest.
It's this is wild. I haven't seen a combo deck like this in standard ever since I think the last combo deck I remember was Alrun's Epiphany. Um, okay, well I have to talk about strategy, right? How do you combat a deck like this? You hit it at its core, and its core is Relic of Legends and Rona. If you can keep Relic of Legends and Rona from hitting the battlefield and staying there, the entire deck, I think, sort of becomes a really good value deck, but not a combo deck. So if you're worried about the combo, kill the Relic of Legends.
Hmm.
Like, kill the Relic of Legends. Oh my god, kill that thing. Get it off the table. If you can't do that, then unfortunately, I don't think you're going to get there. But if you can get it out, then it'll work.
So if you're playing Boros Convoke, for instance, if you can put a braid into the deck, that would be enough to break it up, especially if you can nail it early.
Yeah, a braid is definitely a really good thing to add there.
Oh, and the
Killing
card
the
that creates goblins too, right?
yeah,
Because
if
that
you can
destroys artifacts. Yeah.
it is, yes. It's a 1 mana main deck destroy trigger artifact, which is exactly why Jason is not going to play Relic until they need it,
Mm-hmm.
which is usually what combo decks do. You don't want to play the cards you need to get down until you are comboing that turn. Abby Rose needs to undercut Jason's combo by either killing the Relic or by getting creatures under their skin earlier rather than later. And that is how Abby's going to win this game if she can get the anthems down early and get the creatures.
And what deck is faster than Boros Convoke? It's the fastest deck in the format.
Yeah, it's so fast. I don't have a follow up joke for that. You know, I really wanted to. I just fell short. I'm sorry. I'm I donked it up.
Regardless of the result here, though, I want to give hats off to Jason. This is a very complicated deck, and it was just brilliant to see it piloted like that. So, again, 2 Wardens to start off with for Abby, and let's see what the third thing's going to be. Are we going to see, yep, the Knight Errant of Eos? Again, Abby understanding the urgency of what's going on here. So, again, going to multiply the field quickly and see if Abby can get underneath the nightmare to deal with that is Jason's deck here. Meanwhile, Jason they are summoning old Rutstein here, and that gets a treasure. Oh, that's another way to get mana onto the field, Kuro. Treasure.
It is, but it's not as reliable because you need to mill a land, which is sort of like less than half the deck. But I understand what you're talking about. It's 2 mana to cast Redstein with the cost reduction, and then you can get a treasure, which makes it a 1 mana card, and Rona untapping would make it mana neutral. This is
Yes.
perfectly fine. However, it's not reliable. So for a combo deck, you need a more reliable strat. Oh my god, double.
Now, speaking of more reliable things, look at this Boros Convoke deck. That is 2, not 1, but 2 recruiters in the hand currently. This is terrifying, even if you're in a control scenario here. But here comes the mana. Let's see how Jason deals with this.
I don't know if Jason's winning this game. There's too many creatures out, and I have a feeling. Oh, and those recruiters are now coming down next turn, which is another anthem. I would be very scared in this position. Yeah, is that an anthem? I think that's lethal. Hold on. Block the 5/4, block the 5/4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Oh, a removal spell. Yeah, that works. Abby will probably win in 2 turns. Abby will be likely taking Jason down to 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, down to 6 this turn. The token blocks the 4/4. The next turn, Jason's at 6. The anthem comes down, and Abby attacks for a whopping, what is that? 10, 8, 18, 21 damage. That's crazy. That's so many damage points. It just works well.
Jason looking at the loaded situation here, evaluating with the Otawara, and they just acknowledge that, yeah, this is a lot. This is a bit much. Jason down to 3, but again, I admire what they did here with the Otawara because, again, it's always good to take a look at all of your possibilities because sometimes you may see something that you don't see at a first glance here. Otawara being one of the more powerful lands here. So again, Jason taking a look here, there is Titania here, and is there enough here? Is there enough here, Kara, for Jason to begin the combo once more?
Short answer, no. Long answer, no, comma, because Rona is not out. And so Jason cannot untap Rona a bunch of times to get extra mana out, which means that anything that Jason does is mana negative. Because it's mana negative, unfortunately, there's not going to be a way to push through an advantage. This Takenuma is pretty useful. It could get back a Rona. Unfortunately, they just don't have enough mana. This is going to a game 3. I'm pretty sure of it.
It certainly does look like it, but remember that if it does go to a game 3, Jason will go first, and that's the opening that they just might need to be able to get some leverage going with this Boros Convoke deck. So, Kuro, if this does go to a game 3, do you believe Jason is going to need that Rona to start out?
Yes. Short answer, yes. Long answer, yes, because that draw engine combined with the fact that it untaps is what makes the deck work so well. Jason is gonna Iganjo this. That's fine. It's not gonna do anything. Gaining 2 life is nice, but the Witch Stalker's friendly gets there. There's nothing Jason can do here, unfortunately. Just to see what's on top of the deck, just to see what's there. Land, and Inti. Well, there's a Rona in the yard. I turned too late. Big sad.
Yes, but this was very much a good comeback match for Abby. This was what she needed to keep going here. And let's see what Jason does with this Otawara. I'm going to save the Titania because why not?
No, well, it can block the let me think. If the wait, actually, maybe it's fine. Hold on. Gains 2 life, which is nice. Jump block the 5/4. Go to okay.
Oh,
Jason's
oh,
not dead.
okay.
Um, so
Interesting.
I stand corrected. Jason didn't die. But I don't think Rona is cast. I would say I would cast Rona here first. Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that was still though, that was an almost. Like that was coming along towards the end, especially that was one of the better hands that Boros Convoke could draw. Again, we're going into game number 3. Jason, they will be going first this time, presumably. What does Jason need to do here? Like, do you mulligan aggressively for the Ronas? How do you stand up to this Boros Convoke, which again is the fastest deck in standard right now?
Yeah, I think you need the Lorens to deal with the case. I think you need the Ronas early for sure. Getting a board presence earlier, getting Relic of Legends out earlier is what you need to do. And if you can't get that down, you're gonna suffer quite a bit. Suffering, 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 suffering. It's going to happen.
All right. Abby mulligans once, and we'll see what she pulled. Well, again, we cannot see the hand, but we'll see it unfold at least. There's the inspector for turn 1. Will there be tokens that follow it up? Kellen entering the field again. You're talking about that early board presence, Kuro. And let's see exactly what happens here for Abby.
Kellen is very nice because if it doesn't die, it'll theoretically draw Jason some cards, and all of Jason's creatures are 3 mana or less. I think. Yeah, that sounds right. So they'll be able to draw some cards off of that. And if Kellen is abraded, that's an abrade that's not going to Relic of Legends, and it's also an abrade that it's a spell that is not going to be used to make tokens. Abby didn't cast anything.
Okay, so the Otawara and the Sokinzan make things a little more complicated here because, again, Jason tends to use those cards to kind of go through their deck. However, I do believe lands can be returned, I believe, with this deck from what we saw. So, again, that Otawara, we almost want to see as a temporary land, right? Anyway, Slogurk hits the field here. And again, Kellen charging forward here puts the extra relic into the yard.
Yeah, you don't want the relic here. You already have one. Is Abby sucking at Resolute Reinforcements? Okay, that would make sense.
Resolute reinforcements. Yes. So again, Abby adding to her field. Let's
Uh,
see what the next card is. Cavern of Souls. Really a non-factor here. There's no counter magic going on. Inspector
my
hitting the field. This looks like a knight errant. No, it is going to be a case of the Gateway Express. And Abby's like, no, I don't want to deal with Slogurk here. And we get the triple swing here, which will anthem Abby's side of the field. So not a bad turn there for Abby in the slightest.
No, not at all. Abby has the anthem, and it's the first anthem. It's crazy that I'm saying that, but it's the first one. And there's 8 anthems. No, there's 12 if you consider the recruiter as an anthem. 12 anthems in Abby Rose's deck that could theoretically land. This is really threatening. Jason needs to deal with this. Like Jason needs to think. I just hope that I don't lose next turn. I don't think Jason's gonna lose next turn, but it's gonna be really, really hard. It's going to be an uphill struggle. Oh, Lauren's nice. That's a Kellen trigger. Didn't happen, though.
All right, so
Well,
we have the barrage.
yeah,
Barrage for the creature.
that's really good. It kills Kellen. It kills Rona. It kills Slogurk even, because it's blue. It's just...
All right, down to 9 for Jason. Draws the Loran. Kellen hitting the field. Loran hitting the field. Again, that will get rid of the anthem. And 9 life suddenly looks like a lot when you're only staring at a bunch of creatures with 1 strength.
There's a Warden.
Warden and Epic here.
It's not an anthem. So if Jason draws Sunfall here, Abby can theoretically just kind of lose, right? Because that Sunfall would destroy the board and Abby would have no backup plan. Oh,
that is a clock on the game. That is gleeful demolition. Not going for the relic here. Not going for the relic. Very interesting situation. But Abby says, no, I am going to make this have to be answered right now or never, which is the plan that Boros Convoke does. Again, that Warden getting up in the area here for maximum damage. And that is a land off the top. Plaza Heroes, but still nonetheless a land off the top here as Jason's thinking about what to do with the map token here. This is a rather precarious position here for Jason.
Jason needs exactly Sunfall, of which they have exactly one in the deck. If
Yeah.
that is not on top of the deck to draw with Lauren, there's nothing Jason. Oh, okay. Elspeth is down. Looking
Okay.
for Rona, I suppose.
I'm not
Yeah.
seeing any Ronas.
Well, if Jason had tried to draw into Sunfall, that was also not happening because that Sunfall was not anywhere close to the top of the deck. Unfortunate. I love his combo deck, but I think it's really just gonna fall flat this game, unfortunately.
Yeah, their combo deck was really, really good. Like, again, just hats off to Jason for playing this deck. Combo decks are always fun to watch, they're always fun to execute, and they did a really good job with it. It's just against a meta with Boros Convoke, it's a really difficult uphill battle, but we did get to see the combo pulled off once. So again, Jason, they're pretty awesome. Be sure to watch out for Jason coming up because again, just big fan of their decks.
I feel like Jason's gonna come back to after this game is over and say, "Man, I really wish that I had some temporary lockdowns in the sideboard." I think this is a really good lesson about like this is really like showing why temporary lockdown is in so many control decks right now because to avoid this exact situation. Imagine the board was wiped and the recruiter comes down. Okay, a 3-2. That's perfectly fine, not a problem. And then you have Sunfall and you have literally like a 12-12. That's crazy. That's a dead in 2 hits. But unfortunately, that is not what's happening here. GG. 2 Gs.
Dang. That was another like, wow. Again, that deck withstood Boros Convoke for quite some time, and you have to be impressed, especially when any, and I mean any combo deck can stand up to the fastest deck in the format. So again, thank you to both players. Thank you to Jason for pulling off. They successfully pulled off the combo once against Boros Convoke. That alone is an achievement.
Absolutely. It's so hard to fight against all those tokens when you don't have like the answer. You just gotta hope that you get your combo off early, and unfortunately, that just didn't happen. But sometimes it does, and we saw it happen in the first game. So at least we were able to showcase that combo. I've never seen that combo before, but it was awesome watching it. I love it. It's so fast, like pew, 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 all these lands going everywhere. So Ginger's being cast for free. Like I can imagine just the hands going like this, like they have like they're juggling.
Can you believe we still have one more game left for tonight? So, our fourth and final game, let's reveal what the decks are going to be. And we have Amy, and Amy brought Boros Convoke, another Boros deck that just, again, we see this deck. Sorry, it's not going away. I'm just saying. And this one is just again pretty standard fare. We are seeing a little bit of a spicy sideboard here. Would you like to talk about that, Kuro?
I assume you're referring to Furnace of Urabrask? Yes.
That is one of them, but I'm also thinking about the taxes that are in the side deck as well. The taxes.
Oh, the taxes. Oh my.
Yes. So I'm talking about the Anointed Peacekeeper. It's one of the first times
Yes.
I've seen a tax card outside of maybe Thalia. We've seen some Thalias floating around. But yeah, we have some taxes in the sideboard here. And the Urbras Forge, which I presume is used against control.
Oh yeah, no, I understand what you're talking about now. I was like, is there land tax legal now? What the heck?
No,
No.
no. Just generic tax, like Peacekeeper taxes cards from the hand.
Anointed Peacekeeper is extremely useful, especially if you're thinking that you might be playing against a control deck, because you can use it if you're on the play, playing it on turn 3 and naming Temporary Lockdown turns it from a 3-mana board wipe to a 5-mana board wipe, which the turns really matter that much. Speaking of turns, Urbas Forge is a card that scales, and control can't just keep killing the token. They have to kill the Forge. They have to draw a Farewell or a March of Otherworldly Light. If they don't get that and they can't kill the Forge, you can just keep attacking with a token and making them waste resources. In other words, you can sort of play them on their own turf. It's pretty good.
All right. Well, I'm really happy that this is going to be our final matchup for tonight because now we're about to see its mortal foe in Emily's deck in Azorius control. And this is a matchup that I truly have been waiting to see. I want to see how these two decks clash. What do you think about this matchup overall, Kuro?
Well, this is interesting because this deck does not strike me as an Azorius control deck, at least traditionally. This deck has a lot of tokens and it has a lot of ways to block. It isn't a traditional control deck like we were watching earlier today in the sort of 40-minute match that we were looking at. This is more of a Azorius tokens deck. It feels a little bit like the Esper mid-range deck that we see sometimes, but minus the black. So we're missing like Rafine, we're missing Denic. Instead, we're playing a lot of card advantage, but we're playing card advantage with creatures. Tishana's Tidebinder, Novice Inspector. We have No More Lies, of course, as a counterspell. But we even have the Schooner, which is not really a control card as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it's true you get to draw lands, but, Restless Anchorage does that. I think this is a really interesting tokens deck that sort of has counterspells in it and a nice amount of counterplay. Unfortunately, it does not seem to have temporary lockdown in it. So I am not quite sure how this matchup is going to go. It has them in the sideboard, rather. They have them not in the main.
Yes, this is what you would likely see if you were in a standard fair tournament where you cannot swap your decks. Whereas the VML, you're going to get VML'd and see those temporary lockdowns in the main. Let's see what happens when they're not in the main, though. Let's go on down to our match.
I love the phrase, you get VML'd. I've never heard that.
That's what it is. If somebody puts 4 lockdowns in their main, I'm sorry, I call that getting VML.
Yeah,
I'm not wrong.
You're not. You're absolutely not.
All right, so we have a declaration of vampires first to start. Epicure hitting the field here. And again, we do have the Gleeful Demolition. We do have the Knight Errant of Eos. This is a very speedy hand for Amy to start. Emily's hand a little bit more of a mystery, but we do see an Inspector come down. So again, you were talking about how this one is a little bit more of a token deck here. And I believe that this is so far working out to Emily's advantage compared to the standard fare that is Azorius control, especially when going second.
We just saw a really interesting land play here from Amy. I think Amy didn't quite realize that the Gleeful Demolition cannot be cast with Cavern of Souls. The plan there on turn 2 is to play the Battlefield Forge, kill the artifact, get 3 tokens, and cast Knight Errant on turn 2. Unfortunately, the Plains is not able to cast Gleeful Demolition, meaning that Amy is going to have to wait one more turn to be able to do that, probably with Sundown Pass. That is really unfortunate because that tempo lost could be the result between a win and a loss going forward. That's really unfortunate. That being said, this Virtue of Loyalty can simply be cast. So you can kill the artifact of the Gleeful Demolition, then you can play Virtue of Loyalty, get a token, and you still have 5 tokens, which you can then use to cast Knight Errant of Eos, which I think Amy is now going to do as a backup strat. So it's probably fine.
Indeed. So virtual loyalty is played, and that is just what's going to happen. Knight Errant of Eos will hit the field, and let's see what we get off of it.
Yeah, this is so scary to play against. Oh my god.
Oh my gosh, that is an Evangelist. And the Inspector is also chosen. Wow. Just wow right now.
Man, every time I hear the word Inspector, I just think of copyright. You know what I mean? Like
I get it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah.
No further commentary.
It is worth mentioning, by the way. Of course, again, with this plan, you want to blow up your own artifact, but also remember that the Schooner can be killed by that should that be needed in future games. Again, a lot of folks don't think of Gleeful Demolition as taking down their opponent's artifacts, but there it is. Okay, so we're seeing a swing here just from the Knight Errant. Okay.
I love that you call it the scooter, like it's Looter Scooter from way back in Kaladesh.
No, shout outs to Looter Scooter.
It's pretty similar, isn't it? It's a 2-mana vehicle. You pay a 1 crew to get it on the belt, to get it active. You basically draw a card when it attacks. There's nothing bad about it. There's nothing wrong with the Schooner.
No, nothing wrong with the Schooner.
Yeah.
Anyways, here we are noticing. Again, Emily does not have as much of a board presence. Again, that is to be expected against Boros Convoke here. But again, this is where you're talking about where if you don't mainboard the lockdowns as a control deck, this is a little bit of an uphill battle. And it's still possible for Emily, but when your opponent opens, literally everything, the Knight Errant. I mean, the only thing that's about missing right now is an anthem. What can you do?
I mean, we have two anthems, right? We have a Virtue of Loyalty in Exile, a Virtue of Loyalty in the hand, and the Battle Cry from Sanguine Evangelist. So,
Yeah.
oh man, this is going to even though Amy did not get the amazing turn 2 Knight Errant out, it's still extremely impressive. Emily Aisher is very clearly telegraphing Wandering Emperor here.
Mhm.
However, Wandering Emperor isn't really doing much right now on this board. Even if the evangelist is exiled, everything else gets +1, which is super, super scary. And then if Emily taps out for that, well, the virtue of loyalty is just going to come down anyway.
Yeah, so it looks like, yep, we're gonna get a crew here from the Schooner. Hey, I said it right that time. So the Schooner is crewed.
If we have Looter Scooter, then we can call this one Boater Floater.
I love it. Yes, Boater Floater is crewed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No!
Schooner.
My comeuppance! It's come to
Yeah, let's go.
Oh,
All
dang
right,
it!
so this is going to be down to 4 here down the middle. Also, thank you, Phoebe. We love you. That is going to be down the board here, down to 4 for Emily. And this is just, again, such a massive board. Instead of going all in on the enchantment, we're going to see more of an investment on the board here in terms of real estate. And why not? There's not a lot of opportunities for wipe here. So Amy just going all in saying, I'm not afraid of anything this can produce. Although Emily does emerge another token, and this is a 2/2 this time. Now I need to make sure I don't call it Schooner, it's Schooner.
Yeah, I now have to correct myself too. Dang
I
it.
still like
Dang.
Boater Floater personally, but that's just me.
I will call it Boater Floater.
It's the Boater Floater.
It's a
Murex down for Emily. And again, although a very useful card, we were talking about control decks earlier, utilizing Murex. Murex is at its best when there's nothing really going on and you can get a poison victory, which dang, I was disappointed we didn't get a chance to see that earlier.
I
But
mean,
Murex,
sorry, sorry.
you're good.
I was gonna make a sarcastic. I was gonna say, what do you mean? Amy's gonna attack with everything. That means Emily can just attack with those pest tokens for free. Surely, surely, surely that will be able to deal 10 poison counters. Surely everything will be fine.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So, okay, we're seeing the gleeful demolitions go away, and we're seeing the forge and the column there. So that
Oh,
would be what goes. Okay, that makes perfect sense.
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because the temporary lockdowns are likely going to be sided in. So you want to take out anything that might play into this too much. So anything that's 3 mana or more, you actually want to get in. Oh wow, this is you
That is
know,
a hand that exists in Magic the Gathering.
yep. Well, I'll get rid of it. Oh, this hand is.
It's almost there. It's almost there. So again, this is a difficult decision. I don't blame Amy for keeping this hand. Like there is just so much potential here. Let's see what she gets rid of.
You
Again,
see
there's
that
a lot. Yeah, go ahead.
this is
Good.
how close it is. This is how close. This close. Surely the audience can see my fingers. Just see how close they are. Is this close to being a hand? Oh, widened. Oh, is that a battlefield forge? Nice.
Yes,
Good
so
draw.
Battlefield Forge out first, then we have a Plains. And again, gonna kind of hold off here. Here, you suspect the reinforcements or the virtue here, and let's see what Emily does. That is a Peacekeeper for taxing.
Ooh, that is very nice. It's probably gonna be naming the Sanguine Evangelist, or maybe even Knight Errant of Eos. I'd be tempted to name the Knight Errant just so that it can't be forced out earlier. But
Mm,
the Evangelist is probably the better pick, just because it's a 3 mana spell, and that's what you're gonna be playing. Man, I don't know.
this is a
Emily's looking.
tough call. Yeah.
It is, because a lot of this depends on what Emily has in her hand. If she has no more lies right now, yeah, I think Emily has no more lies right now in her hand. Because if she didn't, then perhaps naming the Knight Errant is better, letting the Evangelist live and doing wacky shenanigans. But since
How about the virtue off the top, by the way, considering that's what could. I mean, again, this is not an error on Emily's part. It's not even an error at all. It's just, it's wild that that's what happened off the top of the deck. So Peacekeeper, oh, the Peacekeeper swings. Okay, this is very interesting here because there is potential for a Wandering Emperor play here. Let's see what happens. Amy's like, yeah, no, I'm not risking that. So Amy likely going to play the Virtue, and she does. What do we have going on? And that is a no more lies off the top. So again, the nice thing about this in the case for Emily is that it's exile. It doesn't go into the adventure zone here, and that is a war leader's call off the top for Amy.
Amy is definitely in a position. It's not necessarily an automatic win. The Knight Errant can only get 1 mana spells, and if Emily has another No More Lies, this tempo is actually really. Oh, just kidding. Well, there it is. Oh, wow. Those are good cards to get. Jeez.
Yep, no recruiter off the top, which is unfortunate because, again, not enough was used to cast that. But still, that is an Inspector and a Warden of the Inner Sky. Off the top here, don't think the Peacekeeper is swinging this time unless there's really... Oh, and that is Get Lost off the top for Amy. Pretty good draw overall. So, again, a lot of options open for Amy here. What are you thinking should be done here, Kuro?
It's. Oh, wow. This is a really hard evaluation for me because. Oh, never mind. It got a lot easier. If Anchorage is activated and they multi-block to kill the Knight Errant, I am absolutely casting Get Lost on the Anchorage to get a 2-for-1. After that, you can cast the Warden and the Novice Inspector. Either way, it doesn't really matter what you kill. You cast the Warden, you cast the Inspector, you get 2 more creatures down. You tap all 3 of your creatures, get the Warden, or you can hold a victory or Virtue. Either is fine.
Oh, that's a second Peacekeeper off the top, but we're definitely going to see the Virtue most likely because that is the only play that can be made right now. Peacekeeper, you were talking about the Evangelist being selected before. Is that what's being selected again, or do you think the War Leader's call might be better?
I don't know. I doubt the Evangelist is being picked again. It is not a high priority target. The War Leader's call is far more threatening. So is Virtue of Loyalty. If Amy draws a land here, that Virtue coming down could mean so much. Yeah, there goes the call. You can't let Amy play down an Anthem and on a 1-mana spell, which tells me that Emily does not have a counterspell in her hand right now. If she did, she would have allowed the War Leader's call to be cast and then counter it. So I don't think that's going to happen. This is a really rough position for Emily. Unfortunately, the deck does not have the card advantage that the other control deck had, and the Wandering Emperor isn't getting played that much. It looks like. Oh, there's a lockdown.
Oh,
that's nice. Actually, that's really nice.
all right. Map tokens are being activated. We're gonna see the token side of Virtue getting played here. And now, yeah, like you were saying, the 5/5, that's tough for this deck to deal with. The only real way it can, make a statement right now is with Warden and maybe the Inspectors here. But what are you thinking here? I mean, do you prepare for a wipe? Do you not overly invest in the field, or do you use the Warden to get over this really tough Peacekeeper?
I would want to cast the Evangelist, I think, just to get a 3-mana spell down so that when the temporary lockdown comes down, you don't have to worry about it. I would even be tempted to attack with both of my tokens just because the lockdown is potentially coming down this turn. Yeah.
Mm.
This is hard to get around. You can't attack into the Peacekeeper. It's a 5/5. The Peacekeeper is Vigilance, so they can attack you for free. Amy does not have a way to kill the 5/5. However, Emily doesn't have very many cards in her hand anymore. This 3 is not coming in.
Yeah, considering this is an odd situation because usually the control deck contains more cards in hand by this point, whereas Amy's hand is still rather loaded right now. So again, still truly anybody's game.
Yeah, Emily did not seem to have very much card draw at all. And Amy has been playing very conservatively, which is definitely benefiting her. This Warden can start scaling up, especially if the Virtue of Loyalty ever comes down. And it's very clear to me that Emily does not have a counterspell, which means that those virtues are almost certainly coming down. Even the War Leader's Call can come down. Anything that allows Amy to get extra. Oh, I'd be tempted to even get the Manland just in case there is a potential board wipe from Emily. But Emily didn't seem to have like Sunfall. I don't think are very many Sunfall.
Another temporary lockdown here, which nabs the token and the warden. But again, the evangelist is great in this case because, again, it doesn't nab anything with mana cost 3 or greater. So, again, it does stuff, but it doesn't quite do everything Emily wants it to do right now. So, that is another epic here off the top. So, Warrior's Call, thanks to the tax, is a little more expensive. And at this point, if an anthem were to be played, there is still the virtue. There's 2 virtues in the adventure zone here, but Amy down to 7 right now. And every time that Thran portal is activated, that will be a hefty cost here. So Amy is in a little bit of a predicament, but again, still truly not sure if there's much of an advantage bar right now because, again, this one could really go in either direction.
Yeah, Emily seems to be a little bit more advantaged here, purely because she has a 5/5 attacking in. Amy is very clear to me, very clearly setting up for a Virtue of Loyalty next turn. She doesn't really want to play Warleader's Call because that does not scale up. If she wanted the call to activate a few times, she would have played it first. So I don't think she's trying to activate it. I think the Virtue is going to come down next turn and try to combat this 5/5 that's attacking in. But if this Knight Errant of Eos ever dies, the Peacekeeper is going to be pushing in really harshly. And if Amy goes to 1 life, the Thran portal is essentially a land that is useless. And Battlefield Forge cannot tap for any color at all. It can only tap for colorless. So taking Amy to 1, there's a reason to do it.
All right, so we're waiting to see what exactly Emily drew here. And again, this is one of those on the edge of your seat moments because this is probably the most pivotal play so far in game number 2.
Oh,
Peacekeeper goes down the middle. Okay.
I fell out of my seat because I was on the edge of it.
Peacekeeper gets chumped by an epic here. All right.
That's fair. That's fair. There's a Murex.
That is a Murex. Okay. We still don't know what the last card is, but that is a Murex clue for Amy to draw. That is a Warden. That is an interesting draw. We also have Cavern of Souls now, which is very important against any deck that plays blue-white, declaring humans. And again, the Warden and the Virtue can now both be played this turn. Let's see how Amy handles this, although I believe Amy probably doesn't swing in this turn, but we'll see what she does.
I don't know if the Virtue is getting cast this turn. It might, but going to 5 is really dangerous because the Anointed Peacekeeper is going to kill if it hits Amy. Imagine Emily plays Sleep. No, that card's not legal in Standard. Just kidding. Virtue of Loyalty is going to pop off. Yeah, no, I'm just referencing. Imagine Emily just plays Ancestral Recall and draws 3 cards. Yeah, surely that's possible. Sorry. Virtue of Loyalty is going to be triggering this turn, and it's going to be untapping everything, which means the Warden of the Inner Sky is able to tap creatures for free, get bigger, and then untap everything and get more counters. And Emily in the list does not seem to have a very reliable way to deal with this Virtue. And a second Virtue is going to absolutely smash Emily's board. This is scary. If I were in Emily's position right now, I would be like, wow, I really, really wish that I had like Memory Deluge or in Sunfall or something like that.
All right, Murex, though, seeing some action here. Everything untaps with Virtue, and now the Peacekeeper kind of starting to look a little small.
Yeah, the Knight Errant can match it now, and the Sanguine Evangelist is going to be able to do stuff. The second Virtue of Loyalty, I think I would play, just on the basis that I would want to have double Virtue.
Ooh.
I might even play the Recruiter for the Adventure and get 2 tokens, just to have them on the field, so that like all the anthems go crazy and just this Warden's gonna pop in.
Oh, that is an Evangelist on the top. My goodness.
Gas.
All right, and speaking of free attacks here, now Amy gets a chance to strike back. Or does she? We don't know what's in Emily's hand right now. 2 cards still.
Well, if it's a Wandering Emperor, then she's going to be real sad because this Warden is not tapping anytime soon.
Nope, it has Vigilance. And that is a second Virtue of Loyalty that is coming down. Makes sense if the first one, for some reason, were to get destroyed or bounced via Odawara. Good call by Amy.
I mean, dang. Amy gets Amy gets another token to this turn or next turn. That's hilarious. Well, everything gets tokens. Remember Broker's Ascendancy?
Yes.
Remember how good that card was in limited? Well, we're giving it to you in standard as well, except it's twice as good and also gives you a free creature. We hope you like it.
All right, the Evangelist looking like it's going to hit the board for Amy to go even more horizontal.
Why do you need to go horizontal when Warden has vigilance? Just don't. You know?
Yeah, I don't think Amy wants to take a chance on any future draws here.
Yeah, everything gets haste. Swing with everything. Battle cry twice.
Oh, oh.
Pump, pump.
And,
And well,
and it
yeah.
looks
Take.
like that's going to be it. Good game between both players, though. Dang.
God, that was 50 damage on the board, more or less. That's crazy. There's so
Wow.
much damage.
That was unbelievable. And again, not only is it important for us to see these matches, but you want to think about sideboarding, right? So again, we're next week will be week 5 here in the VML. And yes, we do see some major archetypes here, but those sideboards can really make or break matches here. So I would say the theme of tonight is to think about your sideboards very logically. I know I'll be doing the same heading into next week. You know, play something that you're good with, play something you don't mind playing in the mirror against, right? You know, if you're not comfortable with a control mirror, don't register control, for instance. If you don't want to play aggro mirrors and whip out your calculator, don't play aggro either. So you want to think about not only how you're going to fare against your next opponent, but what you feel comfortable doing a mirror match against. Because I have a feeling we're going to see a lot of Boros and Azorius in our near future. What do you think, Kuro, overall? What lessons should we be taking from tonight?
I mean, we've definitely seen how oppressive the Boros aggro deck can be, and we've also seen how the control deck could potentially check it. Being very conscious about what your opponent's strategies are and how you can combat them. I mean, that's my control mindset, but if that works, it works, and that's something that people should be doing.
So, first of all, as we head into the end of our show here, I do want to thank folks for tuning in. I want to give a big shout out and hello to anyone who may have been watching from MC Chicago right now. We really appreciate y'all joining us. We hope you're having a wonderful time at the event. And again, we hope you're having a wonderful time. You know, VML is present there right now. So be sure to go check us out there. That's going to be a ton of fun. Go find us while we're here. Well, maybe not us. We're here holding down the fort here at VML, but go find the wonderful folks at VML there, and you will always have a home with us. So again, Carl, thank you so much for being my co-caster. It's always fun being here with your expertise. I had a wonderful time tonight. So again, how do we find you on the internet, Carol?
I'm on Discord. That's it, really.
That makes sense. And you can find me, Skybilz, at twitch.tv/Skybilz. I'm on YouTube. I am on, of course, Twitch. I am on Twitter, and I'm also on Blue Sky. So if you have any of those, you'll be able to find me. I want to give a big shout out and thank you to Wizards, to our wonderful, wonderful tech behind the scenes, Phoebe. We absolutely love you. To our admin team again at NC Chicago also. Y'all are going to be fantastic. It was wonderful working with y'all this week to help us get set up for the show. For, of course, ourselves, our casters, the players, and of course you, the viewers. We very much enjoy your company here. So again, we just want to say thank you once more, and we will see you back here next week for week 5. Take care and adjust those side decks accordingly.